Hello students, this is the final video for researching ethically, and I'm going to try and keep it even briefer than the other two. I just wanted to cover how to compose a works cited list for your presentation or for your essay. So for your presentation, if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation, you can do this at the final slide, or you can just make it in a Microsoft Word document and attach it however you'd like to do it. For the essay, it does need to be formatted in Microsoft Word or a word processing document. And so you need to follow a little bit more attention to detail there, because you can do things like a hanging indent and 12-point font and things like that. That might be a little harder to do in PowerPoint, not necessarily those things, but or in Prezi or Glogster, those kind of things. So I'm going to show you primarily here for the essay how we might work this. And remember from our other video that we said, okay, we have our source, and any time you paraphrase, summarize, or directly quote from a source, you're going to need to give credit in the text right after you summarize, paraphrase, or directly quote, and at the end of your presentation or paper in a works cited list. And we said if you're using APA format, that would be called a bibliography, but for our purposes, it is a works cited list. And there are a couple places that have good sample works cited list. Our library is one of them. So remember, this is a video, so you can slow it down and go back if I go too fast. But you go to libraries, under research help, there's citation center. And then there's, here's an MLA sample paper template in Word. So if you just want to take that and look at it that way, you can. We also had that Purdue OWL that I linked to in the last video, that sample paper, and it has a works cited list with all the annotations there to tell you how to do this, to make sure that these words are centered, that this is double spaced, that you don't need URLs, those kind of things. So I'm just going to quickly set up a source in my works cited list here. So remember, I had said it should be your last page of your essay. It should not be on the same page as you're writing. So you want to hit page break. I have to go to insert page break to get to my last page if I'm not already there. And you should continue with the same formatting style you've had throughout, which is there are a lot of ways to get there. I go right click, paragraph, and I just make sure that my spacing is still double from the rest of my paper. It's still 12-point font, Times New Roman. The difference here is in this place called indentation. So MLA says that sources should have this be flush left with the margin, and then have a hanging indent. So for instance, give you a visual, because what does that mean? So see how Allen RL is flush with the left margin, and then for the rest of the citation there's this hanging indent here where it's not flush left. Well, if you tab over to get that, every time you have to edit something or you add something, it's going to go wonky. So the best way to just set up your document so it does that automatically, is that right click, and then under indentation go to hanging, and in Microsoft Word it automatically goes to 1/2 inch, which is what you want. And what that means, if I can show you really quickly, and I know this stuff is really dry, but we want to be attentive to formatting because that's half the battle when it comes to college. So it automatically goes to the next line, and yours shouldn't look like this, right? And it, does what we need to do, and then I hit enter, and it starts flush left again. So for each entry I have, you want them to be formatted that way. Now, your sources, and the sample Works Cited list talks about this. They should be listed alphabetically by the last name of the author, or if you don't have an author, by the last name of the article title, that kind of thing. And so that's how you decide what order to put them in. The one I'm going to be working on first is the only one that I've worked on so far, and this is the one for the Occupational Outlook Handbook, because everyone is going to have this as at least one of their 4 sources. So if I go down to the bottom of this source, sometimes sources are really helpful and they will give you a citation, and so they give us one here, but don't let yourself believe that this is already in MLA format. Sometimes it'll even say it is, and a lot of times they're wrong. So you do need to double check, but the good thing is they give you a lot of the necessary information to compose your citation here. And what I'm trying to figure out first is what kind of source I have, because what MLA does in their handbook and everywhere else is the first idea to figuring out what order to put information on for this. Where did it go? Too many tabs, too many tabs. There it is. So to figure out like what kind of information and what order I needed it in, and whether it needs to be italicized or not italicized or in quotation marks, all that comes with the type of source it is. And by that I mean, is it a book? Is it a movie? Is it an interview? Is it a government source? Is it from a database? Is it from a magazine? And the possibilities, I don't want to say they're endless because there's a finite amount of them, but man, they can be really overwhelming. So just to give you an idea, this is our library MLA citation guide, which is linked in the second video and I showed you. If we go down to where the Works Cited entries start, so here they start telling you about the Works Cited page. Sorry about my emails going off there. They give you the basic format, but this is the first one we see, like a print book, right? So this is totally old-fashioned, like you pull a book off the shelf. There's a format for that. And then there are different formats for books for electronic books, so ebooks. And it depends, there's not just one format for ebooks, it depends what database you get it from. So like if you go through the library, they subscribe to different databases that have different ebooks. So you kind of have to know that as well. And then you get into encyclopedias and dictionaries, works from an anthology, books in a series. I'm not going to read all this stuff. This is just to give you, not to scare you, because just take a deep breath. You don't have to memorize this stuff, which is good. But it gives you an idea that there are all kinds of things out there, and sometimes the hardest part, I mean, I teach this and I've been doing it for many years now, so I get it, but for students, I think, they may not know the difference. They might just stumble upon something and they go, I don't know if this is a magazine. I don't know if this is a book. I don't know if this is a newspaper. I know it's electronic. I don't know if it's in a database. I don't know if it's a government source. So sometimes the first question you want to ask somebody is, what is this? What format do I use? The good news is there is kind of a basic format a lot of the time, at least for electronic sources, and they do kind of follow this website example where it says, this is on, what page is this here that we're on? I don't want to exit out of that. 11. So this is on 11 of the Lake Sumter State College's MLA citation guide. And a lot of them follow the same format, even if it's not a website. So they want the author's last name, comma, author's first name, period, title of web page or title of article, and then title of website or title of book or title of magazine, sponsoring organization or publisher. And what they mean by that, that's kind of hard to know sometimes, is there somebody who runs this website? So like if I'm trying to think of an organization you might know, like let's say, I don't have an example. Let's say there's a website for Epcot, but Epcot is run by, their website is run by the Disney company. or the Walt Disney World Company. That's their sponsor, that's their publisher. If you don't know, if you just kind of look around really quickly, I wouldn't even give it, I'd give it like 3 minutes tops. I would scroll to the top of the page, scroll to the bottom. If I was confused, I would say slap that N capital P period. Here, let me point this out. This, and just call it a day. Date of last update, so you're looking for not a copyright date, but a last date of update. And if you don't see one, you put small n, period, small d, period, web, if it's on the interwebs, and then the access date, so that's when you access that source. And that's the basic format for probably everything you're going to use for this career project, and a lot of things that you'll use for other writings you'll do in your freshman and sophomore level classes. Once you start getting into other things, you'll get into databases and things like that. That gets a little bit more tricky in your research projects. There are also different formats for personal interviews if you're going to interview someone. But hopefully you guys know a little trick here. If I click Control F on my keyboard, this little box opens up here in the upper right hand corner, and I can just go like this. And if I'm looking for like interview, because I think, well, how do you format an interview? Instead of looking through all of them, I can just kind of go, oh, okay, here's interview examples. How to cite a radio interview. You know, personal interviews, that kind of thing. So you can go through. So our site here, and this is something, again, you may not know, this is a government website. You know, you can see the .gov up here. And I do know that MLA has a special format for government sources, so for government publications. So what I did when I was in the LibGuides is I went and I just typed in government up here. But again, you might not even know that. You might not know there's a special format for that. And I think in those cases, you know, again, due diligence is kind of my mantra for that, is you look around, you try, but you know, if you're hitting roadblock after roadblock of trying to figure out what your source is, and you even ask somebody and you don't get anywhere, then just go to what you think is the closest thing and try to format it as best you can. Because we're really looking at the whole reason MLA was designed was so that if somebody reads your work or sees your presentation, they can go find that source and they understand the order of the information because we're all following a similar format. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so I'm quickly going down here. I know this is fast. So government websites and documents. I'm here. And, you know, here are ones where I don't have really an author. They list the title of the web page first, and then the website. They don't have a sponsor. They list the date, web, and then the date of access. Those are both the same examples. This is probably the closest to what we have, because if we go back to our source, we can see down here at the bottom that we have, you know, the Department of Labor Statistics. U.S. Department of Labor is kind of our author there, and that this comes from the Occupational Outlook Handbook. It's italicized, so I'm guessing, you know, this is the larger book. But then our page here that we're looking at, our web page, it says arbitrators, mediators, and conciliators. So if I scroll back up here, you know, that is what I would have cited as the title of the web page anyway, and this is what I would have cited as the website. So far it's looking pretty understandable to me. This URL is just giving you a link to this if that's what you want to include. I would say MLA says not to include hyperlinks as part of the works cited entry, unless your instructor specifies. And then they've updated the visited date for us when we visited. We also will need this information, though you might not realize that until you start composing. So as I go to the LibGuide and I'm trying to figure out, okay, I need kind of my author first, and so I'll put that in there. my author is, and I'm going to copy and paste here just because I'm lazy. Isn't that awful? I should be a better typer. Then I wouldn't copy and paste. And so I've got my Bureau of Labor Statistics, U.S. Department of Labor. That's my author, and I put a period there because MLA format says to. When I go to that libguide, I can see that there's a period after the author. There are periods between, all of them, pretty much there. So I'm trying to follow that format. And then I want my title of my web page, and again, I know this because I've done so many of these, but you could also look over here and say, okay, they have after this in italics, prosecuting gangs and national assessment. They have a little bit of a different format, but because it's italicized, that means it's a longer work, so it's probably a book or something like that that's going on there. But because we have a web page, a shorter work, we want to kind of follow something like this. So I go back to my page here and I create my article title, and so then I want my website, which is the Occupational Outlook Handbook. And I'm just kind of going to go through this quickly because you can flip back and forth. So Occupational Outlook Handbook, and then let's see. Oh, we have to put the sponsor in there. I don't think I did that with mine. So I put, oops. Sorry guys, got a little off track there. So Control C, Occupational Outlook Handbook, and so then period, get out of my italics. If I don't know who the publisher or sponsor is, N period, P period, comma, the date of publication, which we said was Wednesday, January 8th, 2014. And MLA has this funky way, it's called the European date format of ordering the date. And so it puts the date first, the number of the date, the month, and then the year. Then they want you to put the medium, so it's a web, it's not a print source, not a DVD. And then finally the date that I visited, so that'd be the 19th of August 2015. And MLA says you can abbreviate months if you want to, just be consistent. If you abbreviate here also. So there's my entry. And again, what I'm really looking for is, are you attempting to follow MLA format? So if ours look a tiny bit different, that's okay as long as there's some reason they look different. You're following a format that would still apply and give me all the necessary information. The last thing I want to do is just make sure that my font is in the right, because I've been copying and pasting a lot here. Make sure my font is still in 12-point font Times New Roman. I think that looks good. So you can follow this for your entry. For your rough draft, you have to at least have one entry for your essay or your presentation. So let me recommend right now that this is it, and you can just edit it to reflect, whatever page you're on. The only difference for you is probably going to be this is going to read whatever your chosen career is. And maybe there's a different publication date as far as when they updated it and when you visited it, but the basic format all around will be the same. Oh, and I forgot, your last name should be still in the header here. MLA, this should be just a continuation from the essay. MLA says you put your last name and the page number in the heading. Don't type the page number in there, otherwise it will be the same on every page and you won't be able to get rid of it. Instead, you go to, where's header and footer? There we go. Header and footer. and there should be insert page number. Here we go, page number. Click current position, and plain number is what we want. And see there, it puts the right number in there. And then you can just click out of the header and footer, but don't type it in there, otherwise it will mess you up. All right, so it wasn't as brief as I wanted it to be, but hopefully it was informative. And like I've said before, don't be afraid to reach out. Your librarians, your English-centered tutors, or learning-centered tutors who majored in English, and I am here for you.